You're not going to like this video, and honestly, you're not supposed to. Because what you're about to hear doesn't soothe, it confronts. It doesn't pat you on the back and say, "You're doing fine." It rips the curtain wide open on something most people never dare to look at, much less say out loud. But if you found your way here, it means something inside you is already tired. Tired of repeating the same patterns. Tired of the internal war no one else can see. Tired of pretending that your pain is just something you'll outgrow. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to finally see the truth. Not the kind of truth that comforts, but the kind that sets you free. Since you were a child, you've been taught to look for someone to blame, to point fingers outward, to assign your suffering a name, a face, often, painfully, your mother's. And sometimes, yes, that name fits. Sometimes the pain came directly from her hands, her words, her absence. But here's the twist no one tells you. It's not her who still holds you hostage. It's what your mind did with her. The story your unconscious wrote. The myth it built around her. That's what you're fighting now. Not a woman, but a shadow. A deep, silent imprint that guides your thoughts, reactions, and relationships without you even realizing it. That voice in your head that says you're not enough. That's not your voice. That's the echo. And here's the part you won't want to hear, but need to. Healing doesn't come from waiting for her to apologize. It doesn't come from making her understand. It begins when you finally stop waiting for someone else to change. It begins when you stop seeing her as an untouchable figure, whether saint or villain, and start seeing yourself. This video is about that journey. And no, it's not gentle, but it's real. And real is where freedom lives. You've been trying to move on. You've read the books, said the affirmations, maybe even tried therapy. And still, something doesn't budge. Something tightens inside your chest when someone criticizes you. Something flares up in your relationships. A need for validation, a fear of abandonment, a craving to be saved. You think it's about your current life, your partner, your job, your friends. But it's not. That ache you're carrying, it's older than any of that. It's the residue of a story that began long before you knew how to write your own. And here's the cruel irony. You're no longer in the room with her, but her voice still lives in you. Not her literal voice, not her latest texts or her tone on the phone, but the feeling she left behind. That piercing silence, that look of disapproval, that time she didn't show up, or the time she smothered you so tightly you forgot how to breathe. That's what you're carrying. Not the facts, but the imprint. Not her, but the shadow of her. Carl Jung called it the mother complex. And it's not some niche psychological theory. It's a deeply rooted emotional architecture that lives in your unconscious. And when it's not healed, it doesn't just affect how you remember your past. It rewires how you live your present. It becomes the lens through which you see yourself, your worth, your capacity to be loved. You start to hear that internal voice, the one that judges you when you rest, that pushes you to perform, that whispers, "You're too much," or "You're not enough." That voice isn't random. It's inherited. But the most twisted part? You think it's your own. You believe it's your intuition, your discipline, your truth. It's not. It's programming. It's a legacy, passed down not through genetics, but through emotional repetition. And the longer you refuse to see it, the more power it has over you. Because what stays unconscious doesn't just sit quietly, it runs your life. And just when you think you've outgrown her grip, it shows up again. In the relationship that feels like walking on eggshells. In the job that drains you because you're too afraid to say no. In the way you chase love like it's oxygen. That's not coincidence. That's the shadow pulling the strings. You think you've moved on. You've grown up, built a life. Maybe even put some distance between yourself and your past. But then something small happens. Someone ignores you. Someone lets you down. Someone crosses a line. And suddenly you're 5 years old again, defenseless, triggered, aching. You feel it in your body before you can name it. Your chest tightens. Your throat closes. You freeze or explode or disappear into silence. And just like that, you're back in the war. Not a war with bullets or screams, but with silence, absence, unmet needs. A war you never declared, but one you've been fighting your whole life. The hardest battles aren't the ones we see. They're the ones we live internally, every day, with no language to describe them. And this one, it's not against a person anymore. It's against a figure that exists only in your psyche. A presence that isn't flesh and bone, but shadow and story. You're not at war with your mother as she is now, or even as she was. You're at war with the idea of her, the myth, the inner ghost shaped by years of longing, silence, and unmet expectations. That's why it feels endless. Because it's not rooted in what happened. It's rooted in what never did. And here's the brutal part. You don't even recognize it as a war. You think it's just life, just stress, just how you are. But it's not. It's the leftover survival strategies of a child who didn't get what they needed, who learned that love meant sacrifice, that affection had a price, that safety was never guaranteed. And those lessons didn't stay in the past. They became your rules for living. Now, as an adult, you carry them like armor, but it's armor that's suffocating you. You've tried to find peace. You've told yourself you're over it. But peace doesn't come when you're still trapped in a battlefield you've never named. And until you do, every attempt at healing will feel like running in circles. Because the real enemy isn't out there. It's inside. Silent, unnamed, and incredibly familiar. So the question isn't, why can't I move on? The real question is, what part of me is still waiting to be seen, held, and understood by the person who never did? You didn't choose this pain, but it was handed to you, wrapped in silence, sealed with generations of unmet needs. And before you even knew how to say your own name, you were already carrying hers. Her sadness, her frustration, her fear. It wasn't something she said out loud. It was in the way she looked at you, or didn't, in the things she never said but always implied. You absorbed it all like a sponge, because that's what children do. Not by logic, but by emotion. And so it began. The inheritance you never asked for. This is the part no one talks about. Emotional trauma doesn't just hurt. It programs you. It shapes your wiring. You learned to read the room before you learned to read a book. You learned that love was something you had to earn, approval something you had to chase, and being yourself something that could cost you everything. And even now, years later, you're still operating under those same invisible rules. Only now you call it personality. But it's not just emotional, it's behavioral. It shows up in the way you say yes when you mean no, in the way you overextend yourself, apologize for existing, or become smaller so others don't feel uncomfortable. You think you're being kind, generous, strong. But really, you're reenacting an old script, one that doesn't belong to you, but to a woman who never got to heal. And here's the sick twist. A part of you feels loyal for carrying her pain. You've internalized this idea that if you surpass her, if you become more free, more loved, more emotionally whole than she ever was, then somehow you're betraying her. It doesn't make logical sense, but it doesn't have to. It's not logic, it's unconscious programming. It's a silent oath you took before you could speak. I won't be happier than you. I won't be freer than you. I'll carry what you couldn't. But that loyalty has a cost, a high one. Because it doesn't heal her. It only hurts you. Your pain doesn't honor her. Your struggle doesn't redeem her life. And the longer you hold on to what she couldn't resolve, the more you become a continuation of her story, not the author of your own. So ask yourself, how many of your choices are really yours? And how many are echoes of an inheritance you never agreed to carry? Whether you idealize her or resent her, one thing is certain. The image you carry of your mother is not the full truth. It's a myth, a story constructed not just from your memories, but from your deepest unmet needs and the silence that surrounded them. And that myth, it's powerful. Not because it's accurate, but because it was born at a time when you had no choice but to believe it. Some of us grow up placing our mothers on a pedestal as saints, martyrs, women who sacrificed everything. We shield them from blame, excuse their actions, and silence our pain so we don't disrupt the image. Others paint them as villains, cold, critical, absent, or suffocating. We define ourselves in opposition to them, determined never to be like them. But both extremes are the same trap. They are distortions, and both prevent us from seeing her for what she really was. Human. She wasn't a goddess, and she wasn't a monster. She was a woman, a daughter, a product of her own upbringing, her own wounds, her own limitations. Maybe she tried, maybe she didn't. But either way, she could only give you what she had. And sometimes what she had was not nearly enough. That truth is not cruel. It's liberating, because once you stop expecting perfection from her, you can stop demanding the impossible from yourself. You see, as long as you cling to the myth, the fantasy that she should have been more, or that she was more than she really was, you stay stuck. Stuck in a loop of disappointment, of longing, of silent blame. Because every time you expect someone else to love you in the way she couldn't, you're not living in the present. You're reliving a past that's already over. And that's why this is the turning point. Not the end of the relationship, but the redefinition of it within you. She will continue to live in your psyche until you choose to look at her with clarity, not through the eyes of a child desperate for comfort, but through the eyes of an adult ready to face reality. You don't need to cut ties, but you do need to cut the cord, the one that connects you to a fantasy. Because healing begins when you finally say, she was not who I needed her to be. And that's not mine to fix. For years, maybe your whole life, you've been waiting for her to see you, to understand, to say the words she never said, to give what was never given. Maybe you've told yourself you've moved on, but part of you is still standing there, emotionally frozen in time, hoping one day she'll show up differently, that she'll apologize, that she'll become the mother you needed. And you've waited, through silence, through disappointment, through relationships that feel like reenactments of the same ache. But what if I told you, she's not coming? Not because she doesn't care, not even necessarily because she can't, but because healing doesn't come from her anymore. It comes from you. And that's not a cliché. It's the shift that changes everything. Because the moment you stop waiting to be saved is the moment you realize you were never meant to be rescued. You were meant to rise. It's brutal, isn't it? The realization that no one is coming, that the comfort you craved as a child may never arrive in the way you imagined. But within that devastation is a strange kind of freedom. Because if you stop expecting someone else to complete your healing, you stop giving away your power. And when you do that, when you turn toward yourself with the same compassion you've been seeking from others, something profound happens. You begin to reparent yourself. That child inside you, the one who begged for attention, affection, safety, is still waiting. But now, you're the one standing in front of them. You are the adult. You are the parent. And no, you won't get it right all the time. That's not the point. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up for yourself when it matters most. When you're sad, afraid, tired, angry, instead of abandoning yourself the way someone else once did, you stay. And yes, it feels unfamiliar at first, maybe even awkward. You've spent so long running from your own emotions, criticizing your own needs, silencing your own inner voice. But that stops now, because the real revolution isn't external, it's internal. And it begins the moment you stop chasing someone to make it right and start becoming the one who finally does. So here's the truth. As uncomfortable as it is, you were the savior you were waiting for. And now, it's time to act like it. There's a reason you keep going in circles. A reason why every time you're about to break through, in love, in work, in emotional freedom, something pulls you back. You call it self-sabotage. You say, I always mess things up. But what if I told you it's not sabotage? What if it's loyalty? Not the conscious kind, not the kind you choose, but a hidden, deeply wired allegiance to someone you were never supposed to outgrow. This is the layer no one talks about, because it's not logical, it's not even visible, but it governs you like a silent contract written before you could speak. Your unconscious mind believes something that's been guiding your every step without you realizing it. If I become happier, freer, more whole than she was, I betray her. Let that sink in. Somewhere inside, you believe that your healing would dishonor her suffering, that becoming what she never could be, emotionally grounded, self-loving, at peace, would mean leaving her behind. It feels like a kind of abandonment, doesn't it? Like saying, I'm okay now, would somehow erase her pain. So without knowing it, you stay small. You choose relationships that replay her wounds. You sabotage the job, the dream, the peace. Because if she didn't get to live in that kind of light, how could you possibly deserve to? It sounds twisted, but this is how emotional inheritance works. We don't just carry stories, we carry limits. And the most terrifying part is that we protect them, because a part of us believes that loyalty means repetition. If I suffer too, we think, then maybe I'm honoring her. Maybe I'm proving I loved her enough. But your pain does not prove your love, and your unhappiness doesn't heal her past. So here's the raw truth. The real betrayal is not in outgrowing her. The betrayal is in repeating her, in living a life that mirrors her wounds instead of transcending them. If you truly want to honor her, you don't do it by staying stuck. You do it by becoming what she couldn't. You do it by breaking the pattern. And yes, that takes courage. Because it feels like walking away from everything you once thought love was. But it's not betrayal. It's liberation. You are not here to carry her pain like a legacy. You are here to turn it into something else. Something better. Something new. You've spent years, maybe decades, waiting for someone to come give you what you never got. That gentle reassurance, that soft gaze that says, you're okay. The unconditional acceptance you were supposed to feel as a child, but somehow never did. And because that moment never came, you looked for it everywhere. In relationships, in friends, in mentors, in strangers, always hoping someone would finally give you what she didn't. But here's the truth that changes everything. You don't need a mother anymore. You need a you, one that's stronger, more compassionate, more present than anyone else has ever been. The mother you needed is the person you now have the power to become. And yes, at first, that sounds strange, maybe even sad. Why should I have to do this for myself, you ask? Why didn't someone else do it when I needed it most? Those are fair questions, but healing isn't fair. It's not about what should have been. It's about what can be. And this isn't punishment, it's empowerment. Because once you stop begging others to care for you in ways they never will, you reclaim your energy, your time, your worth. You stop waiting and you start showing up. So what does it mean to mother yourself? It means talking to yourself gently when you're in pain instead of criticizing your emotions. It means allowing yourself to rest when you're tired without guilt. It means setting boundaries without needing permission. It means giving yourself the love you've always reserved for others and realizing that doing so isn't selfish. It's survival. It means becoming a voice of tenderness in your own mind, especially when the old voice, the one you inherited, wants to scream, the one that tells you to push harder, do better, be less sensitive, be more perfect. That voice isn't yours. It's programming. And now you get to rewrite it, not by force, but by choice. And no, it won't be perfect. You'll forget. You'll fall into old patterns. You'll hear the old voices whisper again. But each time you choose to stay with yourself, when it's hard, when it's messy, when it hurts, you are becoming the mother you never had. Not in theory, in practice, in presence, and in that quiet, consistent act of self-love. You are breaking the cycle. There's a moment in every healing journey when silence falls. Not the silence of avoidance or repression, but the silence that comes after truth, after you've seen it all. The pain, the repetition, the inherited patterns. After you've stopped running, that silence feels like loss, and it is. It's the loss of who you thought you were, the version of you who was still waiting to be saved, to be chosen, to be mothered by someone who never knew how. But that version, that was the child. And the child, while innocent, was never meant to run your adult life. You're not 5 anymore. You're not trapped in that room, in that house, in that dynamic. You have choices now, and they begin the moment you say, I no longer live from what I lacked. I live from what I choose. And that is the final break. Not a rupture with your mother, but a rupture with the story that says your worth is tied to her, that you must suffer to stay connected, that healing without her means betrayal. That's the real chain. And when you cut it, not with bitterness, but with clarity, something is born. You. Not the version of you that performs or pleases or overfunctions to feel lovable. Not the version that internalizes guilt every time joy shows up. Not the version that lowers their voice or shrinks their needs or waits for someone else's permission to feel whole. Number the real you, the one that's been buried beneath layers of emotional debt that was never yours to carry. This moment is the crossing, the point of no return, where the echo of old roles finally fades and a new voice rises, one that doesn't apologize for existing, one that doesn't ask for proof to feel worthy, one that doesn't beg for the love it knows it deserves. And yes, the grief is real, because you're not just letting go of a wound, you're letting go of a fantasy. The dream that one day, what wasn't will be. That she'll become who you needed. That if you just wait long enough or fix yourself enough, the past will rewrite itself. But it won't. And that's okay. Because what she couldn't give you, you can now give yourself. This isn't the end of your story. It's the first chapter you've ever written with your own hand. The first breath without her ghost in your lungs. And that is the beginning of freedom. You've come further than most ever will, because looking at this kind of pain, the generational kind, the invisible kind, takes more than awareness. It takes guts. It's not flashy. No one claps for you. No medals. No external reward. Just you, in the mirror. Realizing the story ends here. Because that's what this is. An ending. Not of a relationship, not of a family bond, but of a pattern that has run through you like electricity, repeating itself through words you never meant to say, through choices you never realized were echoes, through pain you thought was yours, but wasn't. And now you see it. The way you demanded perfection from yourself because she demanded it. The way you felt guilty for saying no because she never let herself say it. The way you abandoned yourself so others wouldn't abandon you. That wasn't your instinct. It was inheritance. But that inheritance stops now, with you. You are not your mother. You are not her limits. You are not her grief, her fears, her unfinished dreams. You are what comes after. You are the evolution, the one who sees clearly, the one who chooses differently, the one who, through tears, confusion, resistance, dares to say, this pain will not pass through me. It ends here. And let's be honest, that choice is terrifying. Because letting go of the pattern also means letting go of the identity it gave you. The inner child who always tried to fix it, win it, earn it. The one who hoped that if you just became better, more successful, more loving, more forgiving, it would all somehow balance out. But it doesn't. Not that way. Not by fixing what's broken in others, but by choosing not to break yourself in the same places. The truth is, you'll still carry the wounds, but now you'll carry them consciously. And that changes everything. Because wounds aren't the problem. Unconscious repetition is. And when you see it, name it, and choose against it, you don't just change your story, you change your lineage. You give your future, your relationships, your children if you have them, yourself, a different blueprint. One that doesn't run on guilt or survival. One that runs on awareness, responsibility, and truth. That's the legacy now, not pain, but presence. So if you've made it this far, say it, out loud, in your heart, in the comments if you must. I am the end of the pattern. And mean it. Because you didn't come this far to repeat what broke you. You came this far to become what no one else ever showed you was possible. There's a kind of revolution that doesn't make noise. No fireworks, no shouting, no big declarations, just a small, steady shift. So quiet, it almost feels like nothing, until everything starts to change. That's what this is. Not a breakthrough that explodes, but a choice that whispers, I am no longer available for the pain I used to call normal. You won't get applause for this. No one will see you sit on your bed, hands shaking, heart aching, choosing not to lash out, not to run, not to numb. No one will see you sit with yourself instead of abandoning yourself. No one will hear the new voice you're learning to speak in. Softer, slower, kinder. But you will. And that's all that matters. Because now you know. The real healing wasn't about her changing. It was about you seeing clearly. You recognizing the pattern. You saying no. You breaking the cycle not by force, but by love. The kind of love no one ever taught you how to give. Until now. And yes, there will be days when the old voices return. When your inner critic speaks with her tone, uses her words. When you'll feel the urge to shrink, to please, to disappear. That's not failure. It's memory. And each time you catch it, you weaken it. Each time you choose presence over programming, tenderness over survival, you win. Quietly, permanently. So no, healing won't look like what you thought. It won't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like grief, like emptiness, like silence. But it's in that silence that something is born. Not a new version of you, the real you. The one who was always there underneath the performance, the survival strategies, the guilt, waiting to be chosen by you. And now that you've seen all of this, now that you've looked your own pain in the eye and didn't run, you're different, not fixed, not perfect, just awake. And once you're awake, you can never go back to sleep. So here's how this ends. Not with fanfare, but with a simple promise to yourself. I will not keep breaking myself to stay loyal to what broke me. I will not keep seeking in others what I am now learning to give myself. I am not the wound. I am the one who heals it. You've started something today. Quiet, personal, irreversible. This is not a trend. This is your silent revolution. And it's already begun.